Hi, this is Bonnie from Lake Girl Quilts, and today I'm going to just show you real quickly how to start cutting from a straight edge with your rotary cutter and begin measuring and cutting using your plastic rulers and your rotary cutting tool. I like to use the Fiskars rotary cutter. This one just seems to have a really nice ergonomic handle to it, so it doesn't let me slip as I'm cutting. I have a piece of fat quarter here that I'd purchased a while back. I just ironed it out a bit because it had a few wrinkles to it, so I should be ready to go. What you want to do is take your piece of fat quarter, or if you have a full-size piece of fabric, line up your selvage edges so that you're cutting against the grain, and you want to just lay it onto your cutting mat. You don't need to worry too much about where it's placed on the mat at this point in time. And then you want to take your plastic ruler. Now your ruler has lines vertical and horizontal. What you'll want to do is line up one of the horizontal lines right along the fold of the fabric here. I'm going to move my camera just a little bit so you can exactly see where I'm going. You want to line up right along the fold of your fabric. Now, I am very picky-patty about how I line this up because this really sets the stage for cutting straight lines and making sure that you have accurate measurements on your quilt pieces. You also want to kind of take a peek underneath and make sure that you're not going to be missing any of that underneath layer of your fabric when you're cutting your straight line to measure from. So I've got a little bit sticking out underneath there, so I should be good. And I am exactly on the side here, along, and right here again as well. So holding the plastic ruler very carefully. There are tools that I have looked into getting. I just honestly haven't purchased one yet. That is a handle that suctions right onto your plastic rulers. One of the next videos you might see me using that, but for now I just place my hand very carefully. Oh, so my ruler just moved. Go back, make sure it lines up again, and you're lining up right along the edge of that fold. So now hold it carefully in place, and using a fat quarter you don't need to really worry about having to move your hand because it only really spans this small distance here. For the fourth time, making sure my ruler's lined up on the bottom, take your rotary cutter, put out the blade of it, push it out, and then holding firmly, you'll want to place the blade of the cutter along the edge of your plastic ruler. Now, this is where you might want to purchase a cutting glove if this is one of the first times that you're cutting fabric with a rotary cutter, because you could slip, you could cut your fingers. I've never done this. I've always been very careful and just made sure that I go slow. But you'll want to make sure that your rotary cutter is tight up against the side of your plastic ruler as you move it down the length of the fabric. And notice I'm going fairly slow. I'm putting a little bit of pressure on, but not too much. I'm really just making sure that I'm right-handed, so I'm pushing to the left with my blade, keeping it perpendicular to the ruler and the fabric, but just pushing to the left to make sure that it's not wavering from the edge of that rotary cutter. Okay, so as soon as you're done, I always make sure my blade is put back in place so I don't end up dropping it on the floor and cutting a toe off or something. Now, you should have a 90-degree corner here. You want to line up again on the edge to your line that you had started with, or any line on your ruler really that goes across horizontally. And you can see that this fabric is equally, doesn't stick out, doesn't waver in any place along the edge. And that really is all it is to cutting your straight edge to start with. Now, I need a 2.5-inch piece of fabric for a block that I'm going to be making. So now that I have my straight edge to cut with, what I'm going to do is very carefully pick my fabric up, and I'm going to flip it over because this is actually the side of the fabric now that I'm going to be using my ruler to measure from. I know that I'm squared, so I should be good to go. And I always make sure that I am on the measuring side of the ruler starting with the number 1. I've already done this where I'm measuring from the wrong side of the ruler, and if I'm measuring 2.5 inches, well, that would be pretty obvious because that would be a pretty wide 2.5 inches. But say I need a 3.5 inch square, it's really easy to measure from the wrong side of the ruler, and you end up with really, you're getting a different measurement than you need. So make sure that you're starting to measure from the 1 and find that 2.5 line, place it along that straight edge that you just cut and squared up, and then find a horizontal line on your ruler that you can line up that 90-degree corner to. So I'm lined up along the edge of my fabric here, along the fold, and my 2.5 inch line goes all the way along that straight line I just cut. Very carefully again, hold your ruler in place, engage your blade, put some pressure but not too much, pushing towards the left along the side of that plastic ruler, and just go in a slow straight motion all the way along your fabric, making sure that your ruler doesn't slip as you go. If it does slip, don't worry too much. Just start measuring again. You probably haven't slipped too far and you probably can correct it. And now you have your 2.5 inch strip that you can start using for your quilting project.